Hello and welcome everyone to our virtual webinar to discuss a tougher approach to diversity and equality. We are here with a diverse group of students to talk to you about today's topic. I'm Barnaba and I am from Egypt.
I'm Guney Arslan and I'm Kurdish.
I'm Monica Morgan and I'm also Egyptian.
My name is Amber Aushura and I'm Dutch.
I'm Silvia Saini and I'm Italian.
Hi, my name is Reina. I'm Dutch.
All right, so today we will be talking with you about three topics or discussing three topics. First is racial discrimination, and of course, all of them will apply to the workplace. Racial discrimination, discrimination according to gender, and the importance of diversity if it's used in favor of companies. So let's talk first about two incidents of discrimination in general. This is a picture of Danny Alfish eating a banana that was thrown on him by one of the spectators as an act of racism against people of color in a match between Villarreal and Barcelona back in 2014. However, later, many sportsmen showed support to Alfish through uploading pictures of them eating a banana as an act of standing against racism and discrimination. On May 25th, 2020, last year, Minneapolis police officers arrested George Floyd, who was a 46-year-old black man. After a convenience store employee called 911 and told the police that Mr. Floyd had bought cigarettes with fake $20 bill. 17 minutes after the first squad car arrived at the scene, Mr. Floyd was unconscious and pinned beneath three police officers, showing no sign of life. The officer, seen most clearly in witness videos, pinning Mr. Floyd to the ground, he was white. He kept his knee on Mr. Floyd's neck for at least 8 minutes and 15 seconds. The video investigations showed that the officer did not remove his knee after Mr. Floyd lost consciousness and for a full minute and 20 seconds after paramedics arrived at the scene. History holds an endless number of discrimination incidents that occurred due to race, color, religion, or even gender. And we are here today to highlight diversity and how it is being approached in the workplace. As you all might know, practicing bias in employment based on diverse gender, religion, etc., is illegal in the United States and almost everywhere in the world. But where is discrimination coming from? Discrimination basically coming from diversity. We are different, and we tend to have some sort of bias to those who look like us or those who are similar to us. In diversity terms, a stereotype is a fixed, oversimplified, or overgeneralized belief about a particular social category or a collective culture. For example, Asians are good at math. White men can dance to rap music. Women are masters of communication, and homosexuals excel in art. When stereotypes turn into a tendency or preference, they become biases. And assuming that, for example, Asians are good at math is stereotyping, but using this assumption or letting this assumption influence a hiring process means you are behaving in a biased way and not according to the job criteria. Legal employment discrimination can occur in two ways. First is disparate treatment. In disparate treatment, in this situation, different criteria is used to assess different candidates. Or the same criteria is used, however, it's not job or skill related. For example, a woman has applied for a job, but this specific woman was asked to take a test that men candidates didn't have to take. The other discrimination or the other side of employment discrimination can be disparate impact, and it is sort of unintentional discrimination. It occurs when members of a certain group are underrepresented due to employment decisions that are not in their favor. For For example, a test for reaction times taken by candidates can be discriminating against old candidates or people who are of old age. This can be legal if it's a job requirement, but if it's not a job requirement, then it's discriminating against a specific group of people, and they are the elderly people. Now, we will talk about discrimination within the workplace. Unfortunately, it's not the employment phase only where discrimination can happen. Many cases occur in the workplace too. Racial discrimination has always been an issue that is not being addressed enough, and this is mainly because it can occur in the simplest ways, which no one figures out except for the victim. It can be in a form of a racial joke, asking to touch, for example, their hair or commenting on their facial features, or assuming what their background is based on their race, or even sometimes, and some of us might have experienced this, and is questioning their citizenship. Now I'll give the word to my colleague, Ms. Vromans, who will give you an example, and you shall determine whether it is disparate treatment or impact.
Okay, so before I'm going to start with the case, I want to explain a little bit about the structure of the presentation. First, you get a theory part, and afterwards, we do an activity or a case. I would like you to keep your cameras on for this part and collaborate as much as you can. So the first case is about Syra, a person of Asian ethnicity that applies to work as a receptionist at a car dealership in a predominantly white area. She meets all of the job requirements, but following an interview, the employer tells her, "You wouldn't fit in here." A white person with similar skills and experience is hired instead. I would like you to think about this and see what you can apply to it. Is it disparate impact or treatment? Mandy, do you know?
I'm sorry, I wasn't there from the beginning, so I haven't heard the difference between both.
Is there anyone who would like to comment on this case? Maybe another? Do you know if it's disparate impact or treatment?
Treatment,
And
I
why
think,
do you think so?
because she gets treated differently than someone with similar skills and experience.
Okay. That's a good answer. I personally thought it was impact because of the criteria. They were the same for both Sarah as the other candidates. However, it is an example of probably direct racial discrimination because of the reason by the employer. The only reason she isn't hired is because they think she wouldn't fit in the environment, in the work environment. To prove direct discrimination, Sarah would have to prove that a person from a different racial group was treated more favorably in the similar circumstances.
Okay, thank you.
So for case 2, this is about Horatio. He worked at a call center for a software developer and claims that he was fired because he is Latino. The employer claims that he was fired because he received 3 customer complaints in the previous quarter. If Horatio can show that other employees who received 3 or more complaints in a quarter were not fired and that those employees were not Latino, his argument looks better. Why would it look better, and how do we call this? Bram, do you know? Bram, are you there?
Sorry, I didn't hear the question. Sorry, what was the question?
The question is, why does Horatio's argument look better when he's the only one fired for having 3 complaints in a month? And how do we call this?
I honestly have no idea. Sorry.
Anna, do you maybe know?
What do you mean with why does Horatio's argument look better?
He said that he was fired for being Latino.
Yeah.
Why does that argument of being Latino look better if he can show that he's the only one fired for having 3 complaints in a month?
I don't know, do you mean look better because he's Latino?
Yeah.
And he look better.
Mhm.
Is it like what you mean if he would show it to their boss, maybe about their complaints?
Yeah.
Maybe it shows that he gets unfair treatment when
Yes.
you look at the other employees.
Great, Mandy. This is an example of disparate treatment. Horatio, because he has a Latino background, was treated differently than other colleagues. He has received the same number or less complaints, or if he has received those, in a month or in a quarter than others. However, just because he was Latino and the others weren't, he was the only one fired. This is discrimination, as the other racial groups were not fired, even though they were in the same situation. And then for the last case, this is a bit, this one is all about your opinion. So it doesn't matter, there are no wrong answers for this case. In June 2015, a Laughlin hotel agreed to pay $150,000 to 6 Latino or brown-skinned workers who experienced highly offensive comments about their national origin and or skin color since 2006. A federal lawsuit filed by the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission in the United States alleged that supervisors and coworkers were constantly targeted with slurs such as Taco Bell, bean burrito, and aliens. The lawsuit also said workers were told not to speak Spanish on break. At least one employee lost his job after complaining about the treatment, and the company failed to correct the problems. In addition to monetary relief, the hotel was forced to hire a consultant to help implement policies, procedures, and training for all workers to prevent discrimination and harassment. The company will also receive additional training on its responsibilities and will have to immediately report complaints to the Human Resources Department and must create a centralized system to track complaints. This is a real case. So I'm wondering if anyone has an opinion whether monetary relief would have been enough to make up for the behavior in the comments. Nicole,
I
what
don't think, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, please.
I don't think just money would be enough, but then following up with like a consultant and like I think they did some other things, that at least is a step forward. But if it would be money alone, I don't think that's enough.
Okay. And what's your opinion on the obligation to hire a consultant? Do you think they should be forced to hire a consultant?
I think it's bad that they didn't have a consultant before that, and
Yeah.
that they had to hire a consultant because it was so bad is obviously way too late.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Is there someone who has a different opinion than Mandy? No? Okay. Then I think we can continue with the presentation. Thank you for your answer.
So another way of practicing discrimination is through gender, and gender discrimination mainly happens towards women rather than the opposite. And it can happen in two main ways, which is salaries and representation. So for example, in 2020, women earn on average 79 cents for every dollar that a man earned for the same position. Also, representation is an issue because many companies around the world, also in globalized countries, are still underrepresenting women. For example, in Germany, in the next slide, we will see a graph showing that the 200 biggest company in Germany, like the difference between men and women in the workplace. As you can see, those are higher jobs, and women are severely underrepresented. So as you can see, on 900 people, or only 40 are women. Then in the next slide, I'm going to talk about other two issues that are discrimination because of pregnancy. So this includes denial of days off after having a child, or being fired from the workplace when a woman gets pregnant, or that there can be a restriction at work because of this condition, and so they won't get paid as much. And sexual harassment is also another serious issue. It involves many women around companies, and it can be defined as actions that are sexually directed, unwanted, and that can create a hostile environment. And the two main types of sexual harassment are the following. We can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So the two main types are quid pro quo and hostile environment. So the first one is when someone is employed because they were forced to give sexual favors to the employer in order to get the job. And the second one is hostile environment. So it's when someone already has the job but gets sexual harassment in the workplace, and their performance is being influenced and they may lose the job because of it. Of course, this can also happen towards men and not only towards women, but it's less common as men hold more power in companies. And this is called glass ceiling, where women cannot have a hard time at getting a higher job in their company.
So I'm going to.
So now we have. Sorry.
I'm going to be showing you guys an example of gender bias of a video, and afterwards I will be asking you a few questions and your thoughts. I hope you guys can see the screen. And we're gonna start.
Hi there. Hi. You have a minute? There's something I need to talk to you about.
Yeah. What's going on?
I'm gonna be upfront, cut right to the chase.
Well, that's always been your style, so go ahead.
I'm interested in the director role for the business development team. I think I'd be a good fit. I've held a management role for longer than 2 years. I've hired and fired employees as I've needed to and trained everyone on the team. I've executed, I'm ready.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, Sarah, but you have a little one on the way. I mean, look, don't get me wrong, I'm very happy for you, but do you really want to be a first-time mom and then have a new, bigger role at the same time?
Why wouldn't I want the director's role? I've earned my MBA and this is the career field I've selected.
I just think you're being unrealistic. I mean, assuming you can handle a new position and a new baby at the same time, why don't you just give it a few years till you get in a groove, you know?
I mean, if there's someone more qualified.
No, listen, it's just hard to juggle both. And honestly, I don't want our team to be the ball you end up dropping.
Don't you think that you're being a bit unrealistic? You know, it's fine. Let's just see what senior management and HR has to say about this.
Yeah, big surprise there. You go run to HR to get your new director position, just like you got the one you're in now.
Well, obviously, that's what I need to do to get things done around here. Can you blame me?
Yeah, I can blame you, because that's not being a team player. And it's pretty simple. If you don't want to be a team player, then don't be on my team.
So this was the video. Now I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint. All right, let's talk about the video. So this video presents a female employee portraying her interest in a new position that is available in the company to her male advisor. So he makes comments regarding how it isn't a good idea and that she isn't fit for the position. especially with her kid on the way, along with other various sexist comments. So this is an example of gender bias in the workplace and can result in tension in the workplace between coworkers of the opposite sex. Unconscious gender bias in the workplace is a large issue within many companies. This is only one example of gender discrimination within a business environment. So firstly, I would like to ask you guys if you see what the main problem is in this video. So maybe Nicole want to shed some light?
Do you mean the fact that the boss wasn't as satisfied with her asking for a higher position because she is a pregnant woman?
Yeah, that is the main reason for the problem. So do you think he's unsatisfied with her being in this position because of her qualifications or because of the fact that she is pregnant?
No, it's definitely a fact that she's pregnant. So he thinks that she's able to do less than he expects, I think.
Yes, exactly. That's great. So that is the main issue. That is the gender bias, that this woman would not be able to pair her new position with her upcoming child on the way. Now I'm going to ask someone else. What do you think about the way that she reacted to this, the way that he presented it? Do you think it was reasonable for her to go to HR, or do you believe it could be handled in a different way? Maybe Nader?
So you mean in a different way through the conversation they just had?
Yeah, so at the end, she reacted quite fierce, saying that she would go to HR with the problem. Do you think that is the right way to react?
I think personally that's through a one-on-one conversation, you can eventually get better results. I think it is in the heat of the moment that she got so fierce,
Yeah.
but she has the rights to go to HRs. But I think if they would handle it differently in the one-on-one conversation, better results would come, because pulling in a third person always leads to negative results, in my opinion.
All right. Is there someone that doesn't agree with Nader, maybe has a different opinion? Maybe Anne?
I partly agree with Nader, but I also think maybe HR has a different opinion and a different view maybe on the problem that occurred. And maybe they can solve it, but if they think the same as that man in the video, then it could lead to more negative feelings, I think.
Yes.
So I don't know what's the right way. I think both can be right or wrong.
Yeah, so that's definitely true. The acting accordingly is an opinion for everyone. Of course, it is in her right that she will not be judged for the reason that she's pregnant.
Yeah.
And more on her qualifications.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to move on to the next case.
McDonald's is a restaurant famous for good tasting food and general good vibes. But behind the smiles of the employees that serve you the Big Macs and the fries, there's a huge rise in sexual harassment for female employees. In 2019, McDonald's surveyed 800 McDonald's female employees, and 71% reported that they were suffering from being harassed at work, and that number is ridiculous. And later in the year, McDonald's applied a new sexual harassment policy, and this policy ended up not doing much, as it wasn't mandatory at the restaurants, as the restaurants are independently owned, and this policy was not made mandatory. So it was just in the training book somewhere at the end. And in 2020, another article surfaced where the same issues were reported and nothing has been changed. And the McDonald's CEO, I don't know if I pronounced it correctly, but it's Kemchinsky, said that McDonald's will bring out a global brand standards regarding workspace safety. This is in response to all the allegations about the sexual harassment that female workers have been receiving. And it's McDonald's goal to set an expected safe and respectful workplace for both employees and customers. And it does not matter whether the restaurant will be franchise owned or privately. The number one issue in here lies in the corporate leadership not taking the past complaints seriously and acting upon them. After the first survey, they should have used the data that they had and immediately went stricter on it instead of letting another article surface. The lack of control that the franchises have around the world is also concerning, and this needs to be revisited. As McDonald's does have a training facility for new employees. It's called the Hamburg University. And there is a training for sexual harassment, but it's only for the managerial positions. And it is not required to follow this course as a franchise manager, which is another problem. And as it stands right now, it is currently up to the individual franchise owners on whether or not to follow the policy that McDonald's has laid upon them. And the corporate leaders are still working on a new policy to make it mandatory. So this is the first case that I'm going to be presenting. Anna, what do you think McDonald's did wrong with this whole situation?
Maybe what they did wrong is maybe they had to pay more attention to the franchisers because yeah, as you said, it was not strict enough, so they could be stricter for the franchises, I think.
Yes, exactly. As it is kind of understandable, as McDonald's has a lot of franchises in the US alone, and it's hard to regulate that many restaurants, but they should be way stricter with this. Thank you for your answer. Nader, do you think McDonald's could have handled the situation better? Or sorry, I mean, how could McDonald's have handled this situation instead?
Well, I myself don't know because it is a company that gives out those franchise documents, so people can start their own business with that name.
Yeah.
So I don't know the rules exactly how they can handle this, but I think, like, I don't know, from the beginning on they could have handled this better because it is a normal how to say, it's normal to assume that sexual harassment is not something that should happen on the workplace.
Especially for a big company like McDonald's.
Especially for big companies like McDonald's. So how I myself don't know, but I definitely think that they should have invested more thoughts into problems like these, because I don't think it has started recently. So, like, it starts, it is there a long time, I think. So they should have thought more about this than just give out those documents, like start your own McDonald's.
And make them more important.
Mandatory.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you for your answer. Can we move to the next slide? So the second case is going to be about women being paid less. In 1963, the Equal Pay Act was out, a law which was signed by John F. Kennedy. And this law basically boils down to men and women not being allowed to be paid in a different salary. So if a woman and a man have the same job, they should be paid equally, no difference. But many companies around the globe still do a gender-based pay discrimination, which is not ideal, as John F. Kennedy laid this law 80 years ago. And this law is very important in keeping an equality between men and women who perform the same job. As you can see on the slide, right now, out of the 9,961 American companies, 7,500 companies, and these companies include Facebook and Google, where men are paid more than women or generally the same job. Robin, what do you think about this law and it being violated to this day?
I mean, do you know if companies are sanctioned if it turns out that they discriminate this law, or does the U.S. government do nothing about it?
The thing is that it's an American law, and a lot of companies aren't based in the United States, but the few that are based in the United States generally have the employees have the rights to sue the company for not paying them the equal amount that a man gets paid. But the problem is that there is in the United States in most contracts at companies, you are not allowed to tell your salary to others. So it's very difficult to find out if you're underpaid, if you're overpaid.
Yeah, I
I'd
think
also like everyone to keep in mind that this is in combination with the glass ceiling that Silvia talked about. So not only are women getting paid less, they're also less likely to get promoted to higher jobs, which pay more.
yeah, I think it's completely unacceptable, and I think the companies should be sanctioned a lot more than they are in fact. So yeah, that's my opinion about it.
I definitely agree. It's all we could find was basically articles being called where the companies get called out, but there's never a big lawsuit from a woman that feels violated by not getting paid enough in comparison to her male coworkers. So thank you for your answer, Robin. We can move to the next slide.
Okay, so finally, there's two main ways which companies can use to reduce discrimination. So the first is blind differences, where the employer does not look at the person's characteristic, for example, physical characteristics or gender, race, sexuality, religion when hiring someone, but they just examine their skills. And so everyone is the same and is judged equally. Well, the second one is affirmative action, where the employer specifically looks at gender, race, etc., in order to make up for historical discrimination, or, for example, to have a broader workplace. What do you think would be the best approach for a company to hire their employees? There's no right answers, as these two are still open to debate. Does anyone have an opinion on this? Maybe Mandy, what do you think?
I think they should just hire based on the skills and not look at the backgrounds, ages, gender, stuff like that. yeah, just purely look at skills.
Thank you. Does anybody disagree or agree with Mandy's opinion?
Well,
Maybe
I
Nader.
agree. I agree with Mandy, but I also think when you choose everyone under skills, then maybe you end up with, for example, all women or all men, and then a few maybe women or men, and then you could maybe look at men or women, but I don't think that is discrimination. But then you always have to look at their skills. So maybe later, if you think like, oh, we have like more men than women, then you could look at race, I think.
Yes, exactly. That's why these solutions are still open to debate, and companies still need to find the best approach.
After the explanations and examples of discrimination and discrimination through gender, I will talk about the importance of diversity within the workplace. Diversity in the workplace is all about creating an inclusive environment and accepting every individual and their differences. It's also about enabling all the employees to achieve their full potential, which will allow the business to reach its full potential. If a company has many different backgrounds, it will automatically also have different skills and experiences, which will result in a diverse team. Within this team, different perspectives will be shared and new things will be learned. Therefore, diversity improves creativity, productivity, and makes it easier to solve problems and make big decisions within the company. Researchers have found out that when diverse teams made a business decision, they outperformed individual decision makers up to 87% of the time. So that's a huge difference. Most of the time, companies are very focused on making diversity a huge thing within their company, but they tend to forget about inclusion or think that it's the same thing. And this is a big problem because when companies are willing to focus on diversity and not on inclusion, it becomes exclusion. Diversity is the what and inclusion is the how. So inclusion requires everyone, their contribution is valued and that individuals are, regardless of the diverse dimension, have the opportunity to do their best work. To achieve inclusion, it's very important to create equal chances for everyone. All the employees should feel that they are free to have a voice and safe at their workplace. So when you're focused on making diversity, equity, and inclusion a part of everything that is done within a company, companies are breaking up a pattern. This will result in a better reputation and better understanding of their customers. It is stated that customers are more likely to use services or buy products which reflect who they are or where they stand from. So, if a company is standing for the LGBTQ community, a customer who also stands for the LGBTQ community is more likely to buy or use a service from that company. Diversity can also result in financial gain. Researchers have found out that companies that have 3 or more women on board perform financially better. And despite this fact, companies are still discriminating against women. And as Silvia and Guney stated before, they are still getting paid less than men, which is completely unacceptable. So, to sum up why diversity is beneficial, 1, it increases creativity and productivity. 2, it results in better problem solving and decision making. 3, it increases profit. 4, it results in higher employee and customer engagement. And 5, a better reputation for the company. Next slide, please.
So now we're going to get started with, lastly, a couple of activities. So firstly, we have another video, which is about racial discrimination in the workplace. So I hope you guys can see the video.
Hey, you guys see this? What? This brother got shot on his way to see his grandmother by the cops. They call out to him, he didn't stop.
Can't hear the sound anymore.
There gonna be 1,000 protests. It's not gonna change anything that's going on.
Well, at least they're talking about it now beyond the Black community.
Yeah, maybe. There's no way that any change is gonna happen unless they understand what we're going through.
Are you sure that's a good idea? I mean, you heard about the shooting that just happened, right?
Yeah. I think if you focus on one group over another group, that's part of the problem, right? I mean, okay, look, yes, I heard about the shooting. It's horrible. It's awful. It was a tragedy, for real. But there's tragedies on all sides, okay? I think the important thing is for people to unify and get behind a common goal instead of splintering off into different factions. Because in reality, factions are the things that are causing the polarization.
Yeah, that may be true, but you know, I don't think you're getting that point across with just crossing out the word black. Just saying.
Yeah, I think it's fine. Okay, moving on.
Wow. Really?
What, are you surprised? This is a slap in the face.
That's exactly what it is.
So now we're going to go back to the presentation. In the meantime, you guys can think about what you thought about the video. All right, so in this video, it portrays some employees of color coming together to protest and support the Black Lives Matter movement in their workplace. However, a coworker disagrees and erases their writing and claims that all lives matter. This obviously angers the other employees and makes them feel attacked by their coworkers. So this is an example of racial discrimination in the workplace and leads to the feeling of isolation in the work environment, where teamwork and cooperation are essential to the success of a company. So this video was received in many different ways. So firstly, I'd like to ask what do you guys think the issue is in this video? Maybe Nader?
So the issue was that black people long time they feel oppressed, and now because of the accidents, the events, they wanted to speak out for themselves, but now someone disagrees and crosses their what in their minds defines them, and he doesn't let's say he's not open for it, if you can say it like that.
Yeah, I think so. So what do you guys think of the guy that writes that all lives matter? What do you guys think of his arguments? Maybe someone else, Anna?
I think writing all lives matters is a good option to write, I think. Then you don't exclude anyone.
Yeah. Yeah. So lastly, as I mentioned before, this video was received in many different ways, and a lot of people also didn't agree. So one of the comments made was that politics shouldn't even be an issue in the workplace, that people should not be able to discuss politics. What do you guys think of this opinion?
I think not discussing politics is ignoring like very obvious problems for different ethnicities. Like just ignoring it straight up is worse, in my opinion.
Yeah, so this is an opinion, so there's no wrong answer, but I understand what you're saying. Is there someone that disagrees?
I actually disagree. I think that politics should not be involved when it comes to work, because it can for example, if politics would be brought to the workplace, there always would be a disagreement because everyone has a different opinion, and that would impact work efficiency and make like various cliques in the workplace and people fighting over issues that maybe have something to do with them, but not necessarily.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So yeah, this is an opinion, so there's no wrong answer. A point that could be made is that different political views is also a form of diversity. So now we're going to move on to the next activity, which is a Kahoot. So I'm going to stop sharing and do the Kahoot again. If you guys can get your phones ready, that would be great.
Yeah, so the Kahoot consists of a couple questions and will be a summary for the presentation. So I think there should be 9 people in the end.
So it's me that's missing because I joined my phone, so I don't think that I can easily switch from Kahoot to Zoom.
I'm doing it on my phone both.
Yeah, do you want to try, Nicole? Otherwise, we can move on.
Yeah, give me 1 second.
All right, I think we're also missing Natasha and Bram. So we'll just wait for another minute. All right, I think we're gonna start. So it's just 7 questions and you have 20 seconds to answer. Of 8. So what is the definition of a glass ceiling? Yeah, so all of you guys got it correct. So great job. The definition of a glass ceiling is indeed the discrimination practices that prevent women to advance in their job. Great job. Mandy is in the lead. So this is a true or false question. A company can both undertake blind to differences and affirmation. Affirmative action. All right, so not all of you guys got it correct. So these are two strategies a company could choose to increase their diversity. So blind to differences is only looking at the qualities of a person and not at their background. And affirmative action is also looking at the company itself and the diversity within. So how can they make the company more diverse?
So the right answer was false because you can either choose one of them, but you cannot use both.
Yes.
As one looks at differences and the other does not.
Correct. So great job, Ruben. Let's move on. Great job, guys. So all of the answers were indeed correct. So multiple answers are right for this question. Yeah, so I think most of you guys got it right. So the quid pro quo means that a woman is hired to do sexual advantages because she gets the job or she gets a promotion. And a hostile environment is when a woman or a man, of course, can't do their job right because they are bothered in a sexual harassment way. Great job, Nader.
So the right answer was false. That is because disparate treatment is the one using different criteria. The separate impact is when a certain group is underrepresented due to decisions that are not in favor of that specific group. But the criteria are the same.
Yes. I see still quite a few of you got it correct. I think Guney mentioned this is in this case, so it is in fact illegal since 1963. Great job, guys. You got it. Most of you got it correct. So Silvia mentioned that on a man's dollar, women make 79 cents. And for the last question, I see that a lot of you guys didn't get it correct. So Monica mentioned this in her theory that companies tend to focus a lot on diversity, which causes, and forgetting about inclusion, which causes exclusion instead of inclusion. All right, great job, guys. We're gonna go back to the presentation.
I think that was it for today. Thank you so much, you all, for all your attendance and participation. And if you maybe have any feedback for us, would be nice.
Yeah, or any questions are welcome too.
I thought it was a great presentation. I really liked the information and then the cases. So it breaks up the presentation a little bit. And I really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Mandy.
Yes, it was an enjoyable presentation. Good presentation skills, every one of you.
Thank you so much, Nader.
No problem.
Anyone else? All right, thank you, everyone. We will leave it here, and we shall now stop recording.